Hello, this is the Eden project in Cornwall in England. So just we zoom out just to get a perspective. So there we are in southwest England, and this has to do with Phi and, well, especially the Fibonacci numbers. And a shout out to John Ellison because he's a person I have some contact with on G Plus, and actually he had some input in this building. So I've pleasure to share the information because he's also quite a very intelligent person and very much into botany, and we've had some discussions over the time, but just a very cool person, got a lot of cool information. But in regards to this Eden project, it is I'm very much into measurements and proportions in architecture, and this is a classic example of ancient traditions which have been, well, this ancient system of knowledge has been passed on. So whether it's a direct connection to the ancients, I'm not going to say that, but it doesn't matter because whether it's ancient or modern, whether it was discovered in ancient times or modern times, how profound this information is and how important it is to do with nature and biology cannot be underestimated. So the Eden project in Cornwall, and so we have just an example of, well, there's the main building, probably not the best res, but there we can start to see the beginnings of the spiral in how it connects to, well, for instance, sunflowers, hurricanes, pine cones, all sorts of plants. It really is a fundamental proportion, beautiful piece of understanding the way that nature works. This is how nature works. I'll put the link in the description because this is a Eden project architecture in there are a few interesting points. The that's geodesic concept. That word you can include a little bit, quite a bit of information to be extracted from there. Geometry, earth measure. Geodesic is even a term for earth-based measure systems. But the hexagons here, again, hexagons, flower of life, God, there's this unlimited amount of connections there. The largest is 12 meters across, and 11 meters across, sorry, and 36 feet is 10.99 or something, very, very similar. But if we look, it's 36 feet, I can tell you that for a fact, because this is the way that certain architects who understand these principles work. And SI, so 36 feet, 48, 108, 144, 432, 1296. These are all your basic harmonic numbers that go back in time, back to antiquity, and beautiful systems of architecture and the use especially of measurement systems to encode some very profound, very beautiful knowledge in regards to geodesic geometry, earth-based measure systems. But the core architecture here in the Eden project, it is, again, this is their official site. There's no secret there. It's built on the Fibonacci numbers, which is directly related to the Phi, the golden number, and that's, it's, again, so this is basically to do with botany, and that, well, because it's so important in botany, but also in the macro to the micro, the golden ratio Fibonacci numbers, at the essence of natural systems. This is not something that, we put onto them before the first person walked the earth. This was already in existence, and the Eden project here is just carrying on this very lovely, beautiful, ancient tradition. Elsewhere, for instance, the Louvre pyramid in the Louvre in Paris, it's at a 7:11 ratio. I.M. Pei, the architect, also he's a little bit reticent to admit to it. In a couple of in one interview I know of, he did admit to it that the golden ratio was the most important thing he knew. Rockstar Architects, as I.M. Pei was, he's now getting on, I think he might be in his 90s. Norman Foster, Anish Kapoor use the Fibonacci numbers, the golden ratios in their architecture. They get the prime contracts, the prime commissions, and clearly there are those who know and there are those who don't know, and where the big money is, where the big contracts is, the architects invariably inevitably work with these numbers. They continue working with this Eduardo Paleozzo, I.M. Pei, Norman Foster, Libeskind, all the, again, this like the who's who of rockstar architecture of the guys who are working in these proportions, these ancient esoteric numbers that are so vital. So 7 to 11, the Louvre pyramid is a scale replica of the Great Pyramid, and if you're of interest, look up the Louvre pyramid, look up the ratio of the Louvre pyramid to the Great Pyramid, and if you're into your phi, it's 6.805, I think it is. Anyway, you'll get these, in the infinite sea of random numbers, these people always fall on the most important, the most perfect proportions, and the Louvre pyramid is one example. Okay, I mentioned I.M. Pei, but Anish Kapoor, again, just look him up. This is Cloud Gate in Chicago, and 33 feet high, 66 feet wide. This is an ABC 1, 2, 3 of all the sacred numbers, so to speak. Even the phallus, or the navel, it just 144, 108. Just always, these guys always convert to the same specific set of numbers. Now, if you look at the side of it, it's 33 feet high and 42 feet wide, which is creating a 14 to 11 proportion, which is, again, this view of Cloud Gate in Chicago is the Great Pyramid. Once again, it's just turned on its side, 14 wide to 11 high, 144 in Cremona, 108, 432. Same, always the same. Converts to 36 Cremona feet. I mentioned 36 feet. Well, 36 Cremona feet. These people know. These people are doing it. They're putting it in they're hiding it in plain sight. And because if they were to reveal this, that they're working on these arcane principles, if you talk about this amongst the rationalists, so to speak, rationalism and skepticism has been co-opted by a extremist fringe fundamentalist religion, and I've had a few scotches, so that might seem like a bit of a, but I'm not talking drunk, I'm talking reality, because if you go to the mainstream, in inverted commas, skeptic sites, they are as dogmatic as the Inquisitionists. Maybe that's a little bit of a extension, but you see, the hatred they have towards certain principles such as this really is mind-numbingly. Anyway, but Cloud Gate, so again, 42 feet, 33 feet, 11 to 14 ratio. 1.272727, that would be 1.619 for slope. It's exactly the same proportion as the Great Pyramid using the ideal measures. And again, this is just like really, phi is in nature, but the architects who know, those who get the big commissions, also the sculptors who know, such as I did some videos on Tony Rosenthal, Anish Kapoor, of course, did Cloud Gate in Chicago. He also did there's a large, like a DNA type spiral outside the London Olympic site, which is 377 feet high. 377 is a Fibonacci number. Did some earlier video, like really 377, 144, 55. The Fibonacci numbers are all over this architecture from the ancient times to the modern times. And the question has to be asked, those who give these commissions, those who have the money, those who have the power to allow such sculptures to be built, like, Anish Kapoor, who built this in the main park here in Chicago, didn't just like build it and drop it on the ground and say, okay, I'm going to leave it here. This was commissioned. It's part of a larger town plan, and it's the same town plan. You see the same numbers, same harmonic, beautiful numbers, no less, which go around. And so this Eden project here in Cornwall, it is fire-based. Thanks again to John Ellison, who had an actual input into the design of there, because he is one of these people who understands this and who's not frightened to talk about it and discuss it. And again, more power to you, because this needs to be known. This wants to be known. This was built into not just Earth, but the cosmos, going back quite some time. And there again, those who know are repeating it, and for very, very good reason. And there are countless examples. Tony Rosenthal, someone I did some extended videos on him, for instance. Again, just the architects, the artists slash sculptors who get the jobs in the prime positions to this modern computer age day are still using this. It can be measured, it can be tested, it is 100% absolutely verifiable. Again, but just sadly, the argument of authority, like, yes, we've sadly the bulk of people have been, I wish I could think of a better word for them, polluted by what is so-called modern rationalism, skepticism. Skepticism is not a one-way street, it's a two-way street, and it should apply both ways. But again, if you look at your standard skeptic sites, you'll see that they have essentially an agenda. They're always heading in one direction, and anything that travels on that same road but in the opposite direction is aggressively, almost hatefully attacked. Even though it can be measured, it can be tested. Again, they'll just use some really crappy, pitiful excuses, coincidence, this or that. They'll look for any reason to try and explain these things away. But in the major architecture of not just the individual buildings themselves, but the city plans, the grand cities, Astana, Washington, Brasilia, Canberra, Paris, London, Rome, embed these same proportions, these same exact numbers consistently all the time. In the infinite sea of random numbers which they like to promote, this wouldn't happen. It's the probability is infinity to 1. Yet there it is to be measured and tested. For instance, there's the Great Pyramid, 7 to 11 proportions using the ideal measures. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that needs to be considered, but this is a very good introduction to it. The Phi ratio, and again, Eden Project. Nature wants us to do this. Nature demands that the mathematics of Phi, is unique in the infinite sea of numbers. And again, it's nature, it's beautiful, it's just perfect. And I really can't understand as Mr. Devlin, if you look up Phi, Phi, Devlin, and if you can stand the 2 hours of him really like putting car on this, and then in the last 15 minutes he really addresses the issues. And essentially, again, I don't know whether it's pathology or a conspiracy. I don't know. I can't really tell you. But the amount of hatred is the only really term for it, for people to deny this and to. So firstly to ignore it, but also in some cases to attack. Again, sorry, that's gone off in a rant. But here's just another example of Phi in architecture, in modern architecture, but you will find it in the Parthenon, Great Pyramid, Sanchi Stupa, across the world, cross time, cross cultures. They're all embedding the same numbers. Let's bring up CloudGate again, 432, 108, 144. This is it, 33. These are the exact, even these measurement systems. For instance, we're told that the foot ruler that we use is relatively modern. This is absolute BS. Complete BS. We hear this story that the foot is based on a king's foot. Again, no one should be selling this, and no one should be buying this. It is utter bunk. The Salamis stone, the Red Pyramid, the Pyramidion, the pyramid itself, the Parthenon, Sanchi Stupa, sites such as Karnak, 108 feet wide is the Sarsen Ring in Stonehenge. Countless examples through time, through cultures. 108, 144, 432, and the golden ratio. I cannot tell you what the deeper, which was, let's say, spiritualist or whatever meaning is there. I don't know. That's not my bag. You know what I mean? I'm into sort of, even though I criticize rationalism, I'm essentially embedded in it. I'm really built around measures. But there is something here. There is something very, very profound, very important. Either it's in our DNA or it has been passed on through time through some sort of